What's happening, everybody? So it's your boy Ronimus Prime with my co-host, Alan Lynch. Man, we are back to do another episode of the stuff that doesn't get recorded. Hopefully you guys watched the first episode and enjoyed it. Let us know what you guys think in the comments, and hopefully you guys will enjoy this episode and all future episodes. But let's go ahead and get started. I wanted to talk about a op-ed piece I wrote called "You Can Only Write a Character If You Are Fill in the Blank," and basically, I just kind of go in and write about how I feel like I hate that sentiment that you can't write XYZ character because you're not that character, or you can't write this situation because you've never experienced that. And to me, it starts to become a bit of a slippery slope. I personally believe you can write whatever you want, but this is the real question right here: is can you write that character or culture accurately, effectively, and believably? And I just think that that requires some research. It requires you to ask questions and things. It requires proximity. There's a whole list of things that I go through in the article. But one of the things I do want to make mention of is that even with all the research and everything and being around, you'll never like 100% it. Like, I think you'll get like 99%, or it'll be one of those things kind of like, I don't know if you know, like science, like you'll never reach absolute zero and you'll never reach absolute hot. You'll always come within, like, I don't
Yeah.
want to say five, but like decimal points. Because one of the things that I bring up in this article is like things, and this is not just when it comes to race, but there's just certain things that you you just can't get, because it's like this show is the stuff that doesn't get recorded. There's those moments, there's those nuanced things that people feel or that cultures experience away from the public eye that you don't see. Like, you don't kind of understand how it feels to be looked at by like some old white lady clutching her purse. Like, as a black dude, you don't know how how we process those moments, those when we're by ourselves. You know what I mean? Things like that.
Yeah.
What I'm saying, that keep you from 100%ing it, but you can get really damn close and do a story that is authentic. So I just wanted to get your take on that.
It is a very interesting point. Uh, I'll give you an analogy, right? First, I would say if a person is a good writer, they will want to improve their craft and they will do the adequate research. But there's something about doing research and basing something either on or even your own personal experience, right? No experience is all the same. I am sure I've never broken my hip. So if I went
Hmm.
to a family member and asked, tell me the experience of what happened to you on how you broke your hip, how it feels, what it was like in terms of the recovery. And then I did it to five different people. They're going to give me five different experiences. It's up to me now to decide what to leave in, what to leave out. People tend to sometimes get into this thing where if you do not nail my personal experience,
Hmm.
you didn't get it right.
Yeah,
Right? Right?
and that's kind of, that is a much more articulated way of saying what I was trying to say. Is like, those are those nuance, almost like you said, you've never broken your hip, but you can get enough information to display the emotions and things accurately. I think what I like to say is like, you won't get like firsthand accuracy because you yourself did not experience that, but you can get close enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then you can also do things like there's I may have broken my arm or I may have broken my leg. So then I can use that knowledge and do my research, talk to people who've broken their hip, get an idea and say, oh, it's like this or it's like that.
Mm,
You know what I mean? So I give you another thing too is, let's say, when you write a character from a different culture, sex, lifestyle, whatever it is, you have to decide how deep you want to go into that character, right?
absolutely.
Right. So let's say I do a female character, and the story is about uh, her on the battlefield trying to escape something, and she has to give birth, right? If my story isn't about childbirth in terms of the rigors of childbirth, I don't need to go that deep into childbirth. I don't need to get into all the medical stuff. I don't need to get in because it's a small. I just need to portray as accurate as possible. Talk to someone, and they can
Yeah,
tell me. You know, I like to deal with something which I like to call possibilities.
yeah,
Right. So if you say something like an ostrich has never killed a person, and they sit down, you do all the research, and it's never happened. Me writing a story about an ostrich killing a person, it's a bit farcical. It's not real. I'm presenting something that's a lie. But if there's a small statistic that says 5% of deaths in some region happens due to people being kicked by an ostrich, I feel comfortable telling my story because even though it's highly unlikely, it's not unrealistic. So that's something that also happens. People sometimes say X and X culture, X and X person, X and X sex will never do this. I grew up thinking that there was no black serial killers. You understand? Until, as people said, no, black people don't be serial killers. Till there was evidence to prove. And then I was like, okay, just because there is a small, either, and it's not that it's a small number, it's a small reported number or a small amount of cases of it, doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So therefore, you get what I'm saying?
yeah.
So,
You can. I guess like you can do relative things that it's kind of like science. Like there's so many things when it comes to like space. Like we can't physically go into deep space, but we have enough instruments to measure and what certain phenomena that we can approximate. So
yeah,
back to your ostrich scenario, like so if there was never any reported like deaths by ostrich kick, which bro, I wouldn't even want that. I like look, how'd Ron die? He died fighting 30 motherfuckers. Do not tell people I got kicked by a fucking ostrich, by a turkey on steroids. No. Um, but what you can do is look like, okay, what type of force does an
yeah,
ostrich kick with? And then from there, you can go into, oh,
yeah,
if it were to hit you, this is what it would be like. I mean,
correct.
so for the people to understand, let's look at Black Widow, right? There's whole videos and I think Reddits that are like dedicated to the number of ways she would have died, even with all of like the super soldier like serums and shit that are in um Natasha Romanoff's system. They're like, she'd have died falling X way, just because we look at this is how far she dropped. Like, none of us have ever dropped that far and hit a fifth floor balcony. But we can definitely approximate, like, no, this would have killed her because gravity and the force of the impact and the, what's the word I'm looking for? Blunt force trauma. You know what I'm saying? Like stuff like that. So you may not have any reported cases of like an ostrich kicking and killing somebody, but you can start to use relative experience or
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like there's tools you can use. You like they
So,
kick this hard, they have claws,
yeah,
whatever.
yeah. So as a writer, I sometimes try to take note of weird phenomena or weird factoids because if I ever want to use an instance in a comic book or something, I have evidence to say, yes, it's highly unlikely. but it has happened before. There are people who have fallen out of airplanes and their parachutes didn't deploy and they survived. Uh, there are people who were shot in the head and survived. So, you know what I mean? So there's certain things that, but we also kind of get caught up in, there's reality and then there's fictional reality. I grew up
Yeah.
thinking that giving somebody a karate chop to the back of their neck, it was knocked unconscious, or you know what I mean? I thought that if
Yeah.
a car turned over, it would blow up. But back on the point of the cultural significance and that kind of stuff, I also believe it's the the way how the writer is trying to go about the story. So if I take it upon myself to write another culture, but I'm trying to write them in a negative light, you know what I mean? I
Hmm.
don't think that's good. Uh, you should try to be as respectful as possible. I'll give you an instance, right, where this thing happens all the time, or it used to happen more often, but you know, sometimes the masses do not care. Years ago, are you familiar with a crime drama called Criminal Minds, where these
Yeah.
guys were criminal minds? Okay,
The,
cool.
the show it's still on.
Yeah, right. So I stumbled upon an episode that was set in Barbados,
Oh, okay.
and it was very interesting because it wasn't filmed in Barbados, so and it wasn't set in Barbados. They just called an island Barbados, took a few similarities of what we may have here, like the colors of the buses and stuff, and the whole story didn't make sense. But the only people who it wouldn't make sense to is a Barbadian. If you
Yeah.
watched it, you'd call me and say, "Hey, I saw Criminal Minds on Barbados." You know what I mean? So the intention of the writers and the story people or whatever were to highlight a country, give us some props. It wasn't to make Barbados look bad. The amount of effort it would have taken to for a show that is going to be forgotten within the next season or whatever, to try to give an authentic feel of Barbadian culture, it was not the purpose of the show. You know what I mean? The
Yeah.
purpose of the show
Yeah.
was someone escape into the Caribbean, into an island, and they're having to track them down. We as Barbadians will be like, this is not our island. We don't live like this. This doesn't make any sense. You understand? There's always that level. So,
Yeah. It's always that level of authenticity. Like I never forget. You see it in comic books. Like I'll give you an example. Like Brian Michael Bendis wrote a story. It was a graphic novel. It actually came out in a what they call like prestige format. So it went straight to like soft cover and hardcover,
mm,
and it made me kind of chuckle because there's a scene and it's set in Elliott Bay, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. That's like Seattle, but I'm like, also, it's kind of like you just chose a name, and it's
mm,
like, but you been to this place, or
yeah,
has the artist been to a place?
mm,
Like, there's all types of examples like that. Like, I can see Titanic.
mm,
Like the average moviegoer or movie watcher didn't give a shit about the star pattern in the sky.
yeah,
But I believe it was Neil deGrasse Tyson that pointed it out to James Cameron that that was not the correct star pattern. But like you said, if you're not a stargazer or a astrophysicist, you don't care.
you don't care.
It's those nuanced moments
Yeah,
that once again keep you. You can be wholly authentic. It just won't be like 100%, but you can
yeah,
get close enough that
yeah.
we get the idea.
Yeah,
Unless you do something like totally egregious.
yeah. But
Like,
I would say,
no, go ahead, man.
I would say it has a potential to stifle creativity. It has a potential to people to give up. I was in a forum with some writers, and there were people who were creating female characters, but because of the stigma of trying to write within a certain sex, culture, stuff like that, although people had ideas for characters, they were afraid to create them. So they could not even then. So then, what is the? Am I only stuck to write certain characters in certain locations about certain subjects? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
We none of us. The funny thing is, where most people have come into contact with, let's say, the opposite sex, right?
yeah,
Most people have mothers, fathers, significant others, whatever, right? And we are told, well, you cannot do a good enough job on doing this, even if you try your best. But things like that, we would never ever be like an astronaut or somebody from another alien from another planet or whatever. By all means, we trust your creativity and we trust your skill to do those things.
yeah.
As I said, it's not as simple as it seems because uh, it does have you. I'll tell you something. I've written characters, and I have a friend of mine, and he says, "Why don't you use? Why don't you? Why do you keep creating uh, fictitious places or fictitious locations?" Or, and he says, "Why don't you just use the real places? Why don't you call these places by their real names?" And I would say, because it ties you to trying to. It causes people to lose track of the point.
It
If
kind
I
of
sit
almost
down,
locks you into something,
yeah. So
which
if I
is
do a
why.
story,
Go,
yeah, if I do a story and I set it in a fictional New York like city, I can do what the hell I want. If I start to set it in a realistic New York City, you're gonna have somebody who's gonna say this buildings or these buildings don't work like this. This building doesn't happen like this. So yes, if you are aiming to do this or you are from, that's up to you. You can do it. It's all about the level of what you are putting into it and what you're trying to achieve by it. So there are certain subjects that any person from who's not related to it will not have an idea about it. You know what I mean? And they'll probably
mm.
do a bad job. And it all, as I said, it all kind of boils down to how deep do they want to dive into this thing. You know what I mean? Sometimes I've had things where I've abandoned stuff because I said, well, I'm not going to do a good enough job, so I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, you wanna be you. It's respectful, but it's also the accurate portrayal. And then sometimes you'll see things, and it's like, to do this accurately, I do not have the time and patience to do all that.
Yeah.
So, to your point, take like it, and this is and a lot of what you talk about, I talk about in that article, which is on my Substack, Mitchell's Musings. Everybody, I'll put it back up when we get near the end of this subject. But it's like one thing I mentioned is like Sinners, right?
Hmm.
Ryan Coogler and his wife, their family has ties to, I believe, definitely the Deep South, and I do believe the Mississippi Delta, right?
Hmm.
He could have just asked family members and all that other stuff, but even with that, he didn't stop there. What made it feel so authentic was that he did additional and even more extensive research
Yeah.
to see. That's why even the Chinese characters, I believe they were Chinese, they still speak in a southern accent. They still speak in their natural language, but when they speak English, they're speaking in a southern accent. Why?
Yeah.
Because that's where they were. And
Yeah.
then you can go and find videos of Asian people that have lived in the deep south, and they talk just like that. The whites were over here, the blacks were over there, the Asians were over here, or Orientals, as my grandma would say, you know. Yeah. Oh yeah. Has your grandma ever said? My grandma used to say that for a number of years, and we would have to tell her, "Grandma, Oriental is furniture, but she's from the South and from Ohio and the South, and that's what they would say. That they're Orientals, And she didn't mean nothing bad by it, but like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
just what was said. And it's little things like that you can research, and to be more authentic. But once again, you're never going to like 100% it, but you can get close enough. And it is about how deep do you want to go. Um, I think not necessarily consciously, but subconsciously, people want you to be as authentic as possible. You know what I'm saying? Like, they don't go into something like consciously looking at it like, okay, are you authentic? But they want to subconscious, and I think it's only when they don't get it subconsciously do they realize it consciously. Like what you said about a Criminal Minds taking place in Barbados. Like, subconsciously you're like, okay, as long as it's accurate enough, I won't notice it. But it wasn't accurate, and you were like, okay, consciously now I'm looking at this, and I'm like,
Yeah,
this is not accurate. This ain't even our island.
yeah.
And then you start to just point out all the little things that you know to be inaccurate. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So as long
But
as
the thing
you,
about it was, I didn't get offended.
yeah, it's not
Um,
about being offended. It's just,
yeah, I didn't get offended. I kind of laughed at it. And but as I said, sometimes when you have an understanding of how things work, it's like this is a side fucking note. But it's like when you understand how things work. It's like when you watch your favorite series and Brad Pitt comes into a season and then he dies, and you're like, oh man, I can't believe he dies. And you say, okay, you do understand they could never fucking afford to,
yeah. And he's
right?
probably he's probably giving them a different rate, but
Yeah,
absolutely, like like
but
like
so
like
so
des- yeah, like
so I
Desperate
understand
Housewives.
certain things based on like the reality of this thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Of
yeah,
course, this character's gonna die because, or of course, this character's the villain because they're not gonna pay this person this amount of money to come in this movie or sit around and just do nothing, or you know what I mean. So
yeah,
sometimes those are the things that kind. So equally, if you understand how comic books work, or you understand how uh, creativity, production, those kind of things, you sometimes understand why the person may have not delved deeper into certain things. You know what I mean? Uh,
absolutely.
yeah.
I was gonna try to find it here because there's another thing I wanted to bring because I hate when people where is it? Okay. Da, 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 da. No, that's language. And actually, this part right here about language that was inspired by conversations we had about how like your Pacific Islander characters. I can't remember if you said he was Samoan or whatever, but
Mhm.
just about how you reached out
Oh,
to ask if like how they say things. Is this what they would say?
okay. So
You know.
I did that for a Filipino character that I created, and I also did it for an English character that I created, who
Hmm.
who is a white character. And some people think the idea is because a character is white, they are easier to write than a black character or some other character with some kind of cultural nuance. But all characters have some kind of cultural thing about them.
Yeah.
So, so the character I wrote was English. So I actually reached out to an English writer and asked them, give me the speech patterns of how a person would speak. And it was very interesting. I kind of said it how I kind of gave them the script of what I wanted the person to say. And they then turned around and they did it. And they did it. What was interesting, they did it in three different flavors. So I then had a choice of how deep I want to go into it. Because
Yeah.
there's always a line you want to keep shit readable. So there's always this play, a dance you have to do with things. If you told me to translate something into Barbadian dialect for a piece you're doing, I'm not going to give you the rawest of raw because then it's going to be unreadable. It's not going to make any sense. Some people, we've had fights about that kind of stuff, talk about, yeah, but it's culturally accurate. But if it's entertainment and somebody needs to understand it, you risk making the
Alienating them.
character, yeah, you also miss making the character be a joke. Uh, Similarly, like, have you ever seen when people do the exaggerated Cajun accent that you can't understand?
Yeah. Oh, you don't
So
even
it's
have to.
so
There's
it's done
that,
as a joke. It's just done
and
as a joke. It's not done
and
to
then
be
there's
like,
there's the. It's because it's called the language barrier, right? I remember years ago Sean Paul,
Yeah.
dance on, and he said one of the things he wanted to do early on, and this was on like 106 in Park, was bridge that gap because he's like, a lot of the times people don't get into dance hall because it's hard to understand
Yeah.
what we're saying.
Yeah.
I guess you call it the patois or whatever, or that
Mhm.
they speak. He said, but that can be hard to understand. Like
Yeah.
you like the beat, you don't mind dancing, but it's something that keeps you from fully getting into it because
Yeah.
you don't understand what we're saying. I understand it, but you don't. And that's
Yeah.
what made him partially successful. Like you listen to his music 02, 03, 04, even some of his later, a lot of his later stuff. Like anybody can pick it up and listen to it and get into it,
Yeah. So
And
it's all about creating a level of acceptability, ease, and so I kind of did that with the characters. We showed to the English guy. He gave me different things. Learning from that, I was able to kind of write some of the stuff
mhm,
myself. And then for the Filipino character, the person checked over, looked at it, and said, "We do this, this, this. We call these characters, but because every culture has a name for their mother, father, different things." And the person said, "Change these. This is great." But then you have to make a decision. So there's sometimes you will get in certain cultures words that mean something in their culture, but it means
mhm.
something in English. But you're dealing with an English audience. So if you use the word, it's only going to create a problem. So you have to kind of decide and say, no, what? Even though this is a culturally accurate word, it's going to screw up the whole book.
You gotta it's a line you have to toe when you're dealing with
Yeah,
language, like, and
yeah,
in comics, in film and TV, you like with Spanish characters, where do y'all think the term Spanglish came from? They're speaking this like weird Spanish English. It's
yeah,
like it's trying to toe, oh shit, it's trying to toe a line of like these characters are Latin, Hispanic, even understanding that right there, like Hispanic versus Latin. One deals with language versus geography. You know, like Brazil is a Latin company, but it is not a Hispanic, not country. It's a Latin country, but it's not a Hispanic country. They speak Portuguese.
yeah,
Same with Jamaica. Stuff like that. Trust me, look it up. Look it up.
yeah,
Just look at it. Y'all ain't gonna believe me, but look it up. It's in there. And so that's where that comes from. It's like you do, like I should be saying this, but you do, like you said, you gotta look at where your primary audience is. So I want the character to sound Spanish enough, but not so much Spanish that I alienate the target audience.
yeah,
Um, Now, one of the things that I brought up, and I had it up on the screen, I'll put it back up there because I do want y'all to go check it out on my Substack. Is I believe, let me zoom in here. We get around here, and this is where we start talking about race. But one of the thing is like women. Like I've seen part of what inspired this is that uh, I've seen like women say like you as a man you can't write a woman accurately, and it's like what you said earlier, like especially black women. It's like I imagine most of us have been around black women, your mothers, your sisters, your
mhm,
aunts, cousins, friends, and whatnot, and so that's another reason why I do not like this sentiment. You can't write this, blah 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 blah. Like no, I can definitely write a black woman accurately because that is my mother, that is my sisters, that is my cousins, my friends. I'm not trying to 100% it, but I can do it accurately enough.
yeah,
And then because it's something, and part of what this article is designed to do, folks, is like just expose the slippery slope, right? I can't write a woman because I'm a dude. Okay, well then, inversely, how do you, as a woman, write a story with men? Now, can you do that? Yes. And as you'll see right here, I brought up the example of 2008's The Women. It was a movie, came out in 2008. Let me get this off the screen here. And there's no men in this movie. It's all women, uh, teenage girls, young girls, whatever. They're the only male in the entire movie is the little baby boy who appears at the end in like the final seconds, right? So yeah, you could do that type of a story, but that's an outlier. So at some point, you're gonna have to write a male character. At some point, I'm gonna have to write a female character if I'm dealing with
Yeah.
humans or humanoid people. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I can't write this. Essentially, what this article is like, I can't write this thing accurately. No, that's bullshit. I can.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like I live in isolation. You know, and the same methods that you feel like if you're a black woman and you feel that because black women are low on the totem pole, we can write anything. Like, okay, I get where you're coming from, but anybody on any part of the totem pole can write anything and anybody accurately. I
Yeah.
think the only part that may, if we're looking at it as like a totem pole, the only part that may have problems is the people in the middle. And it kind of reminds me of like years ago when I was in college the first time, our communications teacher asked the class, like, which of the classes, like lower class, middle class, or upper class, and mind you, this is the early 2000s, this is 2003, she asked us, which one of those groups is more likely to own a Cadillac, right? We all thought middle class, right? She was like, no. The classes that are most likely to own a Cadillac are lower class and upper class people. Why? Upper class people can afford it. They have the disposable income. Lower class people, this is our one luxury, you know. So I
Mm.
kind of look at like that sentiment as like if we're looking at it as like a totem pole, the people in the middle may have the hardest, you know, the hardest time kind of doing, you know, following that line of logic because they got to look left and right or up and down, no matter, you know, depending on how you want to look at it. But the people at the bottom always got to look up. The people at the top have the time to look up, up, down, left, right, A, B, start, and all that fun shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I
So,
see it. I see it. There's a lot more to it also. So again, when you write something, whoever you are, and whatever social status, religion, that stuff bleeds into your work.
mhm,
It either bleeds into your work where you're asking questions about it, you're professing how good something is, and everyone has different writing styles. Male and female have different writing styles. They tackle different subjects. They have different interests, right? Like any other thing, there's a crossover, meaning there are
yeah,
females who like sports, there are men who like whatever. You get me, right?
yeah.
There's no right. So equally where you will see someone will say, I can tell a male wrote this female character. As a male, sometimes you can look and say, a female wrote this male character.
Oh, yeah, I
And
can give you an example of that.
right. So, but mainly it's usually on the mindset of the person. It always deals with some people write ideals in terms to try to write what they would want in an ideal woman or ideal man. Some people write in terms of what they've experienced, what they see in person, what they hate about this person, what they like about this person. So there's always a tell of who writes what. And as we all just said, the amount of research you put into it. And you cannot get better at doing a thing without practice. So if you turn around and you decide to shield yourself away from it and say, I'm not going to write any female characters, I'm going to hire a female to write all my female characters because I just don't think I have what it takes, you're doing yourself a disservice.
Yeah,
You're doing yourself a disservice. The ideal should be to try to understand and learn how to write a character. And as I said, you do not need to get into the mind of a 14-year-old Taiwanese girl.
Unless it's important to the story.
You know what I mean? If the story is about her flying a plane as a pilot or whatever, deal with that. Yes, there's certain
Yeah.
things that you know what I mean. Because one of the biggest issues, but I assume we're going to get there, is you will find popular characters. Storm, the mainly one, is the one where you hear people saying a black woman should write Storm, right? But they will still say, well, the last Storm run was good, and the writer, cannot remember his name, uh, did a good job. But then they will still kind of beat the drum and say, but a black woman should write Storm. And I I would love to see it because I would like to see what would be different. What you know what I mean?
You know what I
What
think would be
makes
different?
it different? Are you going to
Because they're gonna project it. This. So I do got some examples of what you're saying.
mm,
This is what I worry about, right? And this is what I think would happen. They're going to project themselves into Storm. I think that's what's going to happen. And sometimes there's nothing wrong with that because, I mean, let's say your favorite hero is Spider Man or Storm or whatever. You get to write your favorite character. You may put yourself in that role. But I think,
I think there are two style of writers. There are people who put themselves into stuff, and there are people who write characters
for who
with
they are,
for who they are and the ideal.
yeah.
So, but your personality or your knowledge will always influence your work, right?
Yeah.
Right. So your character technically will never know more than what you know because it comes from you. But yes, as you were saying about them projecting themselves into the character.
I mean, that's just what I think would happen. I mean, I think, but I also think the same thing would happen with Black Panther. You know, dudes would project themselves into Black Panther. They would, it's who they want to be. You know what I'm saying? And that's just what I think would happen. Um, but as far as like what I said about some examples, like where you could tell that a woman wrote this versus a dude wrote this, I want people to look at Harley Quinn. Look at the Harley Quinn movie, right? That movie was trash. And I don't like to use buzzwords like propaganda and agenda and all that shit because some of that, especially over the last couple of years, has just become some go-to charge words bullshit, right? And at some point we'll talk about that stuff, but not today. But if you look at the Harley Quinn movie, it was definitely, like I said, I hate to say it, but that was definitely like some feminist propaganda because like every dude in that movie was a piece of shit to the point they were pushing that so hard that certain characters in that story just they were not who they actually were supposed to be. Like you have Cassandra Cain in that movie, but she's just essentially like the beta version of Catwoman. You know, she's like Catwoman beta or Catwoman light. That's what they had her do instead of making Cassandra Cain what she is, which is a badass. Like this is a woman that has beat Batman. She's generally considered probably the best hand-to-hand combatant in DC. It may fluctuate between her and her mother, Shiva, right? But in that movie, you're so focused on, you know, I am woman, hear me roar, that you lost the essence of what made some of these other characters great. Huntress was useless in that movie, right? I don't know if you ever seen it, but she was,
No, this is which one? This one is Birds of Prey.
yeah, the
No, not seen
Harley
it.
Quinn and the Birds of Prey and the blah blah blah, and it's just like, okay,
I've seen it in passing. I've walked into a room and
you're not missing anything.
I've
Like,
never seen
and
it
but
before.
even Rosie Perez as the Question, I was like, that would have been perfect to have her as Renee Montoya. But every woman's story in there was some man fucked me over, and I am woman, hear me roar. You know what I'm saying? I was just like, okay, I could tell that a woman wrote this, and I could tell what your ideals are because it's not even bleeding through it. It's what do they call it when you're hemorrhaging blood, you know, and it's all through there. Then when you look at the Harley Quinn animated show,
Mhm.
that felt more authentic to the characters, and you can tell a dude wrote that, and it was written by dudes. Why? Because these dudes wanted to portray Harley accurately. Like, the Joker still fucks her over in the cartoon.
Mhm.
Harley still strikes out and does her own thing, but Harley is a badass. And Harley introduced probably more things that probably female writers would have liked. Her, hooking her up with Poison Ivy, and even Poison Ivy being kind of like a environmental feminist type character, right? They did a much better job of that than the Harley Quinn movie. Like, and both of those things started around the same time, and I'm like, this caught the essence of what Harley Quinn is. But if we follow this logic of you can't write this thing because you're not, so you can't write this female Harley Quinn character because you're not a dude, yet between those two projects, the dude did a better job, you know. And that doesn't say that there aren't male projects that were written by, actually, no, I got one. Deadpool. One of Deadpool's quintessential writers is Gail Simone.
Mhm.
You know, Deadpool riding on the Vespa, that's Gail Simone. That's why
Yeah.
she appears in the movie.
Yeah.
So that kills that notion right there. It's
Yeah.
can
Because
and it goes back to a
a good writer can write. You know, I always like. I am a person. I never got caught up in who wrote shit. So usually, and this goes for like movies, that kind of stuff. I watch something, I like it, and then somebody will come and tell me, "Do you know X and X wrote this movie, or X and X was the director?" And I'll be like, "Cool," because it's all about the proof is in the finished product.
yeah.
You know what I
I'm
mean? And
fi-
I
I'm
feel
I'm
so.
50-50 on that, right? Because there's certain people they've built up enough cachet that I
Mhm.
know instantly, like I might like that. Like
Yeah.
I'll use this as an example. Like Comics Explained, Robert Jefferson.
Mhm.
Jonathan Hickman is one of his favorite writers, right? So he knows what Jonathan Hickman has written, and he likes it automatically because he likes that style. When I went to go see the Odyssey, I never had a question that this movie would be cinematic in scope because
Yeah.
I know Christopher Nolan's work. So
Yeah.
there's a certain expectation. I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
same. I was the same way in comics with Brian Michael Bendis. I was a Brian Michael Bendis fan, still am for the most part, but I knew what to expect, Same with you. I've read several of your stories, so I know the level of quality to expect. So it's like I don't have no questions there. If
Mhm.
you sent me some stories right now, which if you have some, send them to me because I like that one little bit of comic book perk I got is that I can say I read some of your stories before other people. It's all I got, folks. It's all I fucking got. You know. Um, but I know what to expect.
Yeah.
Hell, it's the reason why I'm doing this show with you because I know what to expect from you. So there's just no question about that. But anyway, let's move on because we've been on this for like 40 some odd minutes. But
Yeah.
I want you guys. Let me put it back up on the screen here real quick. Let's see here. Boom. Mitchell's Musings. This is on my Substack. You can find the link for it in the Secret Society of Black Comics. I need to actually post this on our the Secret Sessions podcast page also, but
Mhm.
you can find it. I think I posted it, the link and everything. I think it was July the 22nd. But it's there. I will. I got a new op-ed that'll post the day after we post this video, either the day after or 2 days after. But it'll be after this video drops. But let's move on to something else. So
Yeah.
earlier today, I know you've seen it already. I saw it earlier today. Spider-Man: Brand New Day. Um, I liked the movie. I felt, and I was leaving the theater and I saw on Threads that, and somebody broke it down. It was like Tobey Maguire was Spider Man for this many years, Andrew Garfield was Spider Man for this many years, and Tom Holland's been Spider Man for 10 years, and he's starting his second trilogy. It didn't really dawn on me until I like got in my car and I was doing my little Facebook Live thoughts and review, which I do on my personal Facebook page, uh, usually right after I see a movie because it's my instant thoughts and my instant review of the movie. So there may be some things left out. There's obviously things that I leave out because I don't want to spoil it. But I felt this movie was it fit its it fits the theme that kind of runs through the movie. It's more adult, not like Triple X, not like anything like HBO like Succession or some shit like that, you know. But it's Peter in his early 20s. He's got to be in his early 20s at this point.
Yeah, I like what
Um,
they did there. I
yeah,
like I like the fact that they did a time jump. They did a time jump. This movie was it's okay. It's a movie that on paper it shouldn't work. It's the most comic booky movie I have seen in a way, and it it's what Marvel does well. It's something that when I was growing up, we wish we had. When we watched that first Christopher Reeve's Superman movie, or you watched the first Batman movie, we were kind of conditioned that although we as comic book fans knew that these characters lived in a universe that was bigger than what was on the screen, you know, we we had to accept that there was no crossover. You know, somebody would ask, "What about this character? Or what about that character?" That kind of thing. So with Marvel, I find that the better of their movies are the ones where one or two characters cross over. It doesn't have to be the massive Avenger movies, but it just adds that authenticity that makes the universe feel alive.
yeah.
You got what I mean? So
You no, go ahead, because
yeah,
we both gonna be excited
just
about this one.
yeah. So just just like having Hulk in there, or so like Punisher for me in this was a really big deal because he is one of my favorite. Punisher, Hulk, and Spider Man are three of my favorite childhood superheroes growing up.
Hmm.
I used to collect Hulk comics and Punisher comics. So Punisher and
I'm
Hulk.
not sure if was Hulk in the was we knew Bruce Banner was in the trailer, but I don't think we knew that Hulk was in the trailer. But maybe
I
it's just a far gone
only
conclusion.
yeah, it was kind of far gone conclusion. I only watched the first trailer, and I was psyched. For years, I wanted to see how Marvel would handle Punisher in their universe, be it a PG-13 universe, Punisher being a rated R character, and I saw I when I watched what's the one with Bucky, the first one with Bucky,
Winter Soldier.
Winter Soldier, yeah. When Winter Soldier came out and I saw the action scenes and the way how Winter Soldier
They
would
were
be
killing
quick,
people.
yeah, and shoot, I was like,
So
they could do Punisher, they can
well,
do Punisher.
so with that, so there's a few things. So I want to say this real quick.
Mhm.
As you were talking, I didn't think of this, but you made me think of it. You know what this movie did well that Tobey Maguire's third Spider-Man movie failed to do? This movie paced everything out so much better. Like if you think about it, it did a lot of the same notes because Spider-Man 3, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man 3, one of the things that we hated was that it felt too cluttered. There were too
Yes.
many villains. You had Sandman, you had Venom. Um,
And it's the
oh
way
my
how
god.
it was and the way how it was done.
No, no, wait. Yeah, you
Yeah.
had Sandman, Venom, and then you had Harry Osborn as the Green Goblin too. And we were like, that's too much.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, this movie has essentially three antagonists, not villains, but antagonists.
Yeah.
Um, and
Let's
there's
say let's say this movie has four major players that are characters and then another entity. And it does it so well.
yeah, because they realized like, oh man, because we don't want to spoil it. But basically, let's just say this: there's essentially an antagonist for each part of the three act structure. There's one for the first act, the second, and the third act. Um, oh my God, there was something else that you said. Oh, was it cross? You know what? Go ahead, cause I had it and I
Mm.
fucking lost it.
Yeah. So another movie that made me realize that they can do a Punisher in the Marvel
Oh, was what? Yeah,
universe
there we go.
is when I watched, the Batman, the last
Yeah, the
Batman.
Robert Patton. Yeah, the Robert
Yeah.
Pattinson one.
When I saw that movie, I was like, this could be a Punisher movie. It was gritty. It was dark. It wasn't over the top, and it felt as I was like, they could make a Punisher.
And
Marvel
they
could.
also shot scenes in Glasgow, Scotland there, and some of the scenes in Brand New Day were also shot in Scotland.
Okay. Okay. So
Yeah,
yeah.
but that's but that actually kind of goes back into something we talked about earlier, like subconsciously, as long as you're accurate enough,
Yeah.
I don't care because it looks like New York City. But then until you put something there where it breaks it, now I am, as I like to always say, like in our personal chat, as I will let things go as long as it doesn't break the story, because now I'm consciously
Yeah.
looking at that.
Yeah.
Now I remembered my thought. So the possibility of doing a rated R Punisher, part of that is because if you look at the movies done by Josh Whedon,
Mhm.
they are more, they're not like James Gunn movies. We see what he's doing with the DC cinematic universe right now. They're not that, but they're definitely more like we have hope. Heroes don't kill, right? But then the Russo brothers take over because that was the first movie they did, was The Winter Soldier. And one of the things people talked about was how much more violent it was.
Yeah.
Like characters like remember Agent Sitwell. Bucky just rips him out the car. And he's
Yeah.
like, he does. And this is, yo, people, I never understood this fucking argument, right? They're like, it's too violent. What the fuck was supposed to happen to Sitwell? They're on the goddamn freeway.
Yeah.
Sorry, if this mic makes me sound louder. I'm just sorry. This shit here, it's just like, where did you think he was gonna go?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, people, it's like you wanted to ignore collateral damage, and I think I've told you the story of like this guy that I ran into it at I don't know if I've said it on this show, but I know I've talked to you about it. Like this discussion that I had with a guy about the Superman movie. What was
Oh yeah, but Zod. Zod
Yeah,
killed him.
Zod.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this guy was just like, Superman wasn't very heroic. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, if you're and you see people in danger, like your first thought would be to move the people. And I'm like, Zod is a trained soldier with the same powers as Superman. Why am I gonna let you move this guy from point A to point B? I'm just supposed to fucking stand there? No, I'm gonna follow you, or I'm gonna attack you while you're moving the guy. I'm sorry, tangent over, but no, I wanted to say the Russos are what open up the door because when you look at once the Russos take over, and I always tell people this, you will see a tonal shift
Yeah.
in
It's
the
a
Marvel movies.
darker. Yeah, it's a darker movie. It's a darker movie. Characters
Curse
seem
more.
well. Yeah. Even like you saw when Hawkeye came back as Ronin. There was that edge to a lot of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So, but again, back to the Spider-Man movie. It was I didn't ex I like to go into a movie blind, and I
I've
also
done
like to
that a
go
lot lately.
I like to also go into a movie where, or I like when a movie tricks me into thinking that it's going to be this.
Hmm.
Because if you did check the trailer, I remember people dissecting the trailer where they were saying, this character, I wonder what this character is going to do. And all of that stuff that was in the trailer was in the montage of the movie in the
Yeah.
first couple of seconds. So it had nothing
Hey,
to do with the story. And so I like when they throw a red herring. You know what I mean?
yeah. Hey, you
So,
mind if I pause it real quick?
sure, no problem.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry about this, folks. Let me pause real quick. We'll be right back. All right. Sorry about that, folks. Had something I had to take care of real quick. But no, you were saying no, bro?
Now, I was saying, I like the way how I didn't know what the fuck was going to happen in this movie. And the pacing and everything it felt different. And one thing that made it feel different, which I was watching something and someone said it, and then it kind of dawned on me. Spider Man in this movie, he's a practical character, meaning He's not a CGI character. So it kind of feels different. You can, you know what I mean? It feels like Spider Man is a person. He has a presence in the film. Uh, and the way how they've done it, where he is a part of New York City, it it does so many things that's right. It feels wholesome in a point that you would think should be like hokey, but it's not. He, it also has parts in it that had that body horror kind of feel, where it went dark. It had remnants of. You remember that movie with Denzel Washington when he was fighting against a demon?
Uh, is it the Bone Collector?
No, not Bone Collector.
I think I know which one you're talking about because the demon
Would jump
he
from
would
spirit to spirit
from
to spirit.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, from body to body, and he would be
Who
singing
was
and he'd be taunting him all the time. What is it? Anyway, it has elements of that, and so it was very, very dark, very, very ominous. Uh, it had the right amount of humor, the Punisher, the dynamic there. It handled the mind wiping of, because it is a direct sequel from the last movie in terms of it carries
all of
all
the movies are
factors.
connected, but it's
Yeah.
like well, this is what I okay. So there's a few things.
Hmm.
One, there were times where I definitely noticed the CGI, like that's when Spider-Man is at he's in the water with his mask on. I kept looking at his neck and I'm like,
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. That's
yeah,
CGI.
I was
That's
like, that's
CGI.
horrible CGI. It
Yeah,
looked
that's
like
CGI.
just copy and paste right there.
Yeah,
Um, and then there were just a few times where it's like he's on a building running, and I'm like, okay, I could tell that's CGI. But for the most part, like what you said, he's a practical character. Oh my goodness, it was something you just said, and I lost that train of thought. Oh, Punisher. I liked how, like, if you notice, most of the curse words in this movie all come from Punisher. So it's like because they can't have him. So I don't know if you guys know, but if you say the word "fuck" twice in a movie, it's an automatic rated R. Automatic. So like that's why oh my god, which X Men movie was it? I think it was X Men First Class. That's why Wolverine says "fuck" one time,
yeah.
and then there's nothing
And
more.
he says, when they come to me, he says, "Fuck off."
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, at the bar. Yeah, and that's where I
Because
learned that. Like
you're allowed, I knew that
you're
you're
allowed
allowed
one,
one.
but so it's like they allowed Punisher to go far enough. Like he's not Marvel Max Punisher, but
No,
he is.
he's
Oh
Marvel
my god.
Universe, but sure.
No.
But he,
I was thinking because they had remember they had Marvel Max,
yeah, he's
and
not
then they
Max,
had
but he's regular. Or you're thinking he's
no Marvel Knights,
yeah,
Marvel Knights. So
yeah,
if you guys don't remember, back in the aughts, that's like 2000 to 2010, whatever. You had Marvel Knights, which was still set in the regular Marvel continuity, but it was Marvel stories that were allowed to be a little bit more grittier. Like that's the one where like the Marvel Knights Spider-Man punched Green Goblin, and I think his fingers go into the mask, and people were like, "Yeah, we wonder why nobody ever thought about that before," you know. Um, so he's like Marvel Knights, um, Punisher. Marvel Max Punisher would probably be what you see more so in the Daredevil series and his own series, especially when it was just under Netflix.
yeah,
That's more so Marvel Max Punisher,
yeah.
But I agree with you. Like they allowed him to be grittier and whatnot. So I think they did a
Yeah,
really
and they
good job of
also,
that.
and also with the Hulk being in it, they also kind of, so they went on so many levels in terms of the
Hmm.
different characters. And I actually think too, they kind of, there was a lot of callbacks in this movie. So they did a lot of callbacks to Raimi's Spider-Man 2, where remember in that when Peter gets his abilities for the first time, and the guy punches at him, and he dodges, and he sees the punch, and he looks at it as it goes past his face, and he's like,
Yeah,
he's so quick, and he's just. They did a scene. They did a homage to that with the Shoryuken, and the guy, Ninja Star was thrown, and he dodges it, he looks at it, it was beautiful. The get
each
along.
each each act in the movie, the
Yeah,
reason why a lot of these elements worked is because each act raised the
but
scale, it
yeah,
raised the conflict,
yeah.
and so you don't feel
Either
like it's too
either
much.
either on an
Everything serves its
action level,
purpose.
yeah. Either raise the stakes on an action level, or it raised it on an emotional level. So it was doing it, it was doing it like that.
I think it was doing it
Action,
in steps per
yeah,
act,
actually, yeah,
because that was it. What you said about this movie being a okay, so all of these movies are direct sequels, but this one, what I personally believe is that this one, Thunderbolts, and what was the Captain America movie called? What was the name of that damn movie?
the
Captain
one,
America and the
one with
Fallen.
you mean the one with Red Hulk?
Yeah,
I can't
yeah, it was.
remember. I can't remember his name, but yeah, they're
I,
they're, they're all tight. They're all tight together.
yeah, and so people. So this is what I've thought for a while now, right? With Thunderbolts slash New Avengers, that movie felt like MCU going back to form, right?
Yeah,
One of the problems that we've talked about this in our personal chat. Me, Imani, Allen, and Obasi, right? We talked about this. I felt that Cap Four. I don't want to say Cap Four, but I don't know why I cannot remember that fucking movie. Shit, I almost had it. It wasn't Brand New Day, but it was something like that. Brand New World. That's what it's called.
oh, okay.
No, Captain America in the New World. Whatever. So, bottom line, I felt that that movie was tasked with doing more than what it should have been. We know that movie had rewrites and reshoots because clearly the Serpent Society were meant to be the bad guys, but I always felt that that movie was meant to realign purpose, reset expectation because Marvel fumbled the bag on their multiversal strategy. You know, I'm not against you bringing in new people for fresh ideas, but a lot of those people ignored source material.
Yeah,
You can see it in Thor: Love and Thunder. They brought in Gore the God Butcher. That should have been a dark story,
yeah,
and it's why they fired Taika Waititi.
mm,
Other movies just felt Multiverse of Madness felt jumbled. Ant Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. That's the fourth one. Not bad, but you split the effects team between that and Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, which was a good movie. So it's not like Marvel didn't have some successes, but Spider-Man has been consistent. And
yeah,
now with this, and this is what I'm getting to. Now with this resetting, realigning purpose, resetting expectation, like this movie just fit right into that. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
it felt good in a sense, like,
yeah,
and you allowed, like you said, there's a time skip, and it's how they do it, because the movies, if you remember, after Endgame, were set 5 years ahead of where we were at that time in 2018.
yeah,
These movies have slow because of COVID. These movies have slowly, real world has caught up to the movies, and I think this pushes the timeline up at least 4 years
yeah,
because characters literally went to MIT and graduated.
yeah.
That's 4 years unless MIT has 2 year degrees that I don't know about.
Yeah, but
And who?
this guy, I think they did say 4 years, and they literally did say 4 years in the movie.
Yeah,
The new Captain America is Brave New World. I just looked it up. I
Brave New World.
think, I think if they had not shown Red Hulk in the trailer and kind of kept that for the, because that was the only big reveal. So you're watching Brave New World, waiting for Red Hulk to show up, and he just
Hmm.
shows up in the last act. So I think that's where that kind of fell apart. You kind of had nothing to look forward to. Where in this movie, you didn't know where it was going. You
Yeah,
didn't know what was going to
there's a
happen.
lot to look forward to. Also,
Yeah.
just to expand on that,
Mhm.
I think if they had kept the original idea of having the Serpent Society as the bad guys,
Yeah.
and then using that to expose Red Hulk, would have hit differently. Either get rid of the Serpent Society completely
Mhm.
and go with and go with the leader and Red Hulk, or keep Red Hulk, keep Serpent Society, get rid of the leader. Use him for another movie, or whatever. But yeah, absolutely, I agree with you. Like,
Something too that they did in this movie, which was felt like a bit of a homage to the first Hulk movie, which was directed by Ang Lee, was Hulk grew bigger. he actually,
yeah,
yeah, actually grew, which was something that
yeah.
they did in the first movie. He had three different sizes. He had the size when he was small, then he had one up, and then by the end of the movie, he was huge. And then they did this in this movie,
I
and
think they did that in the first Avengers movie
not it didn't,
also.
not it didn't, it didn't.
Not as three different sizes, but the Hulk was still fairly large.
He was so
But
large, but he never grew. He never grew. They never changed the size of him under the from let's say from Ruffalo's Hulk. Ruffalo's Hulk, even down to when he's the gladiator, he's still a certain size. He doesn't get
yeah,
any bigger than that. But this
you
Hulk,
also notice in this movie he didn't just grow bigger; he was way more ripped.
yeah,
You know,
but
you guys just gotta watch the scene, and you'll understand. Because
that
I thought
got
I thought it was
that
funny.
got a, that got a pop.
Yeah,
There were parts in the theater that really. I went with a crowd that was total Spider-Man fans. I went the first day it was out, so I just was trying to avoid spoilers. So I kind of went right out the gate, took a day off from work, and it didn't disappoint. It was well worth it.
no, it's not gonna disappoint you at all. At first, I thought there were a lot of red herrings, but I just look at it like, okay, these will be seeds for another movie. Um, at first, because I didn't like what I saw with the hand at first, but I
Yeah,
was like, okay, we get later on, and like, okay, now they kind of look like the hand.
yeah,
Um, there was something else with this movie that I like. I mean, I really liked how it handled, and if you look at it, because it's so hard to talk about it without spoiling it,
yeah.
right?
But maybe
If
next
it,
show, next show we
y-
could probably get deeper into it.
yeah, we'll go deeper into, because one of the running themes is what happened in brand new in yeah, brand new, was it not brand new day, but No Way Home.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's No Way Home, and it's how they deal with that, and
yeah,
that's a huge part of the
yeah,
movie.
yeah,
And this movie is clearly, it's not erasing that, but it definitely deals with that. And so I just
yeah.
thought they did
And
a
they,
fantastic
and they
job.
did a fantastic job dealing with the subject matter, dealing with it. It was a beautiful. It was a
There
beautiful.
was there was there was some stuff that I looked. I don't know if you looked at like his crime tracker, right?
Mhm.
I looked at that and I'm like, that's from the fucking video game. The way
Oh,
the
I never
total, the
played the
way it
game.
looks, huh?
I never played the game, so that's
I did.
funny.
I did. I played. I
But
played.
I can tell you that some of the set scenes and the way how the fights were choreographed felt like if it was a video game.
Yeah.
There was a part in there too that felt like the way how the hand was fighting. You remember when movies like what's that called? The one with the first big movie in the to come down with the wire work. Uh,
Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
yeah, that and
I was thinking that shit. I was wondering if you were gonna. I saw that shit because we're not gonna tell you. We'll talk about that next. We'll talk about it more in detail next week. But I saw that shit, and this is what he's talking about. Is where I say like, okay, at first I was disappointed because they listen. What they if you don't see the near end of the later on in the film, you're gonna think they did with the hand what they did with Tombstone. Okay, I'll leave it at that. We'll talk more about it next week. But that scene that you're talking about, I'm like,
was
boy, if
beautiful.
you don't look at this Chinese theater shit going on right here, but
It
it
did
was
it
it
did
was
it
beautiful.
did it felt it did things like there were parts of it that felt like the Matrix. You
Yeah,
remember when the Matrix, one of the biggest things the Matrix was doing was doing shit upside down, and
yeah,
that was the big special effect. And there's a part in this where he does some stuff upside. It was beautiful.
yeah.
So yeah,
I
we
mean,
we
and then
said it. Mhm.
Yeah, and it's man, we'll be able to talk about it in detail, but like something that I just thought about, like you know how Daredevil has these great. It's almost like a standard now. You have to have Daredevil now fight in a hallway,
Yeah.
right? Which brings up this funny meme, this little comic cartoon people drew, and Daredevil's fighting these guys, and then they look up and they see a sign that says the Museum of Hallways, and they're like, "Oh shit!" They're like, "Oh shit!" So the scene with the hand is kind of like that. You think about the space that they're in, but here's something else. Like I said, we'll get way more. I do want the viewers to understand. We love that scene, but also understand that scene isn't just there to be cool. It actually serves a purpose for the story. There is a plot thread that is dealt with that scene, and we'll talk about that more. But yeah, because we can make that so much more of this show. But let's move on from that. Um, One of the questions that me and Alan came up with when we were coming up with topics for this show is just, and we'll probably end a lot of shows like this, is just what are you into right now? Um, I'll start it off with you.
What I'm watching Prime's Ghost in the Shell. So that's what I've been watching. And
Is that live
today,
action or animated?
animated.
Oh,
And
okay.
it's based on the original manga. So it's a, it's almost like a retelling of the 1995 movie,
Oh,
but
okay.
but it's different because the
They
movie
updated
kind
a
of,
few things.
yeah. So the movie took liberties from the comic book and changed it. I know this is more going back to the
Faithful.
to the source material.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
I
Yeah,
I was always told Akira. I was always told that like Akira was like that too.
yeah,
That like the original movie Akira, even though it's a cult classic, like the manga is like yay thick, or at least the Tankobon volume, or as what
yeah,
we would say the graphic novel volume is like yay thick, but it only incorporated like this much of it.
yeah. The movie is
Um,
only half of the manga.
and
From
so what you're saying is that, what you're saying is that it's more so like uh, kind of like because there's been a couple of other animes that did that too. Dragon Ball did that with Dragon Ball Kai, where they went back and they redid the episodes, but they cut out like Dragon Ball Kai just cuts out all the filler and just follows the story that appears in the mangas. Um,
but this one
but the,
is totally new production. So even the art style is closer to the original. So it's
no, no,
not. Yeah.
Dragon Ball Kai is new art. Like I believe they went back and they redid every episode, but they just cut out filler episodes.
Okay.
Like I think like Goku, and Vegeta, and Piccolo going to get their driver's license. Like you motherfuckers can fly. Why do you need a license? You know. But the one that I was really thinking of was Hunter x Hunter, or as a lot of people see it stylized Hunter x Hunter, but it's actually pronounced Hunter x Hunter, and that's what they did with Hunter x Hunter. Was the 2014 series, which is the one that they're going to be finishing up, follows the manga because the original, I don't even think the original finished the Ant arc, but that was a much more condensed version. Uh, I can see Trigun. Trigun did the same thing, except Trigun didn't kill the dude with the cross. Was it Woolworth or something like that? Woodsworth. I can't even remember what his name is. They didn't kill the dude with the cross. There's another one. Oh my! I haven't watched it, and I don't know anybody that has. Samurai X or Rurouni Kenshin. Man, Samurai X becomes Rurouni. I don't know why I can't pronounce that, but Kenshin. I used to be able to say. I don't know why. Maybe because I'm kind of excited, but that's that's another one where they went back and they've redone it
Okay.
and updated. And a lot of times they'll go back and they'll oh, one of the more famous ones, Full Metal Alchemist.
Yeah.
Full Metal
Exactly.
Alchemist was probably one of the first to do it, where they did the original series, and then Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is the same stories, but like you said, it follows the manga
Yeah.
and it completes the story.
I think
Um,
on Prime right now, Fist of the North Star. They're doing now, doing a complete.
There's another one. Wolf, Wolf and Hollow. Uh, it's not an action one. It's a I watched it. It follows the manga more so. There was an original series. You can actually find that one on Disney Plus or Hulu, but then they they redid it, and you can find that one on Crunchyroll. Uh, I want to say they're starting to do that a lot.
Yeah.
Um, and you know, it kind of reminds me like what they're doing with video games. If you think about it, like I've seen a couple of videos where people have talked about like Ubisoft and certain other companies, like their biggest money makers are re-releasing games or remastering games. Why?
Yeah.
You already have all the properties and everything. You already have not the properties, but the assets. So it's they're making more money remastering and remaking that shit than they are making completely new IP.
Yeah.
But moving on, what am I into right now? There's a bunch of animes that I'm watching. But I did watch since we spent a lot of time talking about movies. I did watch the Avatar movie that's on Paramount Plus.
Okay.
Aang the last Airbender or whatever. Beautiful movie, bruh. I don't say this often, but like that should have been a theatrical release. It's an hour and 38 minutes, and it is ridiculously animated well. It is beautifully animated.
This is the movie that was leaked a couple months
Yeah,
ago. Oh,
it was leaked. I chose not to watch it. I wanted to watch it when it came out.
okay.
But it's a beautiful movie. Like damn. And it answers I'll put it to you like this. It answers the question of how what like the sky bison. Because we know that the sky bison came back in Korra, but if Appa was the last sky bison, like where did these other sky bison come from? Because they don't know how to clone shit in this series. They didn't even have cars until Legend of Korra, you know. So this movie answers like how more sky bison came
Okay.
into play, but it's not a major thing, right? Um, and something that people should know: there's there's a lot of like stuff that happens in those like Last Airbender like graphic novels, right? Like if you want to know what happened to Zuko's mother, there's a graphic novel that tells you. Remember, it's a whole bunch of them. There's North and South. There's oh my God, North and South is about the Northern and Southern Water tribes. Um, like if you want to know like why Toph is sitting there in a metal bending academy, there's a couple of them that talk about the metal bending academy. Like so, there's a lot of extended. There's a lot of I don't want to say extended material that will help you understand what some of these characters have been doing since the show ended and where this movie picks up. It's not like a direct line, but it'll tell you like a lot of that in between stuff about what they've been doing, and it's some pretty good stuff. I've enjoyed them. Let's see, yeah, it just different ones. I haven't read the one with the Kyoshi Warriors yet, but there's quite a few North and South. I think the Rift is another one. Um, I can't remember what all of them talk about, but yeah, just if y'all get a chance, pick that up. Same with Legend of Korra. Legend of Korra Turf Wars picks up right where the show ends, and then after Turf Wars, you go into Ruins of an Empire, and that deals with Kuvira and whatnot. So, little stuff like that. But that movie, hands down, was beautiful. None of the original voice actors come back. Only one person does, and that's D. Bradley Baker, and he was the voice of Appa, and then the lemur. Something that the movie does that I liked was that it didn't start naming out all of these weird animals. Like, that's one thing about Avatar that I never understood. Like, every animal just banged every other animal, you know? Like, nothing is just straight what it is. Everything except the sky bison, they just sky bison, But everything else is like lion turtle. I
Okay.
don't know.
I,
Parrot roach.
I must check it out. I must check it out. I must check
Yeah,
it out.
but it was good. But like I said, man, it's beautiful. They're in their like 20s. They got to be in like they're like early to mid 20s. But if you want to know like how Republic City kind of gets formed, some of that is in those graphic novels that I mentioned because it actually the original name was something else. It was like Turtle Crane City, but if you kind of read between the lines, you'll be like, "Oh, okay. This is the foundations of what will become Republic City." So
Mm.
that was good. Other than that, just a bunch of different animes. We'll talk about it next week because this episode's running a little bit late. But yeah, it's there's a bunch of them that I'm following that I'm watching that'd be a whole nother like 30 minutes. But that's it. You got any personal projects coming up?
Working towards a Kickstarter, which should be coming up in September. Still trying to work on the tiers and the rewards and that kind of shit. So I want to probably talk about that probably next week. Have some more information, but that's what I'm trying to get back some pages from the colorist.
Okay. Likewise, as I already mentioned earlier in this episode, I pretty much have it done, but I'll be dropping it after this episode drops. My new op-ed piece. Keep a lookout for it. It is. I enjoyed writing it. It's one of my longer pieces. I'll give you guys the title, but it'll be on my Substack, and I'll be posting it in the groups. It's called "Black Loving Comics: Sky's the Limit, but Storm is the Ceiling." You'll have to read it to understand why. It'll be something we will probably be discussing on the next episode. But either way, this another fun episode in the can. Guys, check out my Substack. Keep a lookout for Alan's Kickstarter project coming up. And once again, thank you guys. Y'all take it easy. Be blessed.
And see ya.